Most people think confidence comes from being praised, but it actually comes from getting so much disapproval and surviving it. Welcome back to the Full Body Yes podcast, my loves. There's something I want to talk about today that is very alive in my field and in my life right now. And as you know, I always share with you more or less in real time things that I'm moving through and just lessons that I'm learning. And last week on the podcast, I shared a situation where I felt almost this danger about this authority figure potentially not liking me or not thinking as highly of me as they did before. And even though this person did not actually say anything or make me feel that way, that was just the way that I felt, being this people pleaser, the need to always be loved, especially by authority figures. So internally, my whole nervous system went straight to, what if she hates me? What if I've damaged something? What if I've ruined my entire life and my entire business because of this? And then what I realized, which is what I talked about last week, that even after years and years of personal growth work and personal development work and business growth and leadership and self-leadership, my system still equated disapproval with danger, with feeling unsafe. And when I get proof like that, when I get data like that from the universe, I like working with it. So last week I took you through my process of figuring out the reflection, why I was feeling the way that I did, what that emotion was trying to tell me, and how I shifted it. But overall, I realized that there is a bigger lesson that I need to learn here and that I'm being faced with. And that is that in order to get to my next level, I really have to work on this existential need for everyone to like me, to be approved by everyone. Because let's be honest, when you are approved by everyone and when everyone kind of quote unquote likes you, you're kind of vanilla. And as a personal brand owner, as a business owner, as a person who craves visibility and for her soul to be visible and to attract the right type of people, you have to be more yourself. You have to share more of your own views, even if they are quote unquote controversial, because that is what's going to bring the right people to you. Yes, it might make some people not like you as much and disapprove of you, but equally that will make your soul work and your soul clients come to you so much more quickly. Now, most people think that growth happens by thinking differently, but in my experience, it's something that I've been actively working on. Growth actually happens when your brain and when your nervous system get new evidence. You can consciously want expansion, more visibility, more authority, more impact, more clients, more money, whatever that is. But if your nervous system and your subconscious mind associate those things with rejection, with criticism, with abandonment, overall with being unsafe, they will quietly pull you back to the same place every single time. And that is because they are trying to protect you. Your subconscious mind and your nervous system do not care about your growth. They care about you being safe. So as long as you are attaching safety, the meaning of safety, to things that you are used to, you are not going to be able to get to the next level until you force that next level to feel safe, until you force it on your subconscious mind and on your nervous system, and you make them familiar with it, you make them feel safe with it. That is when you can actually expand to the next level, perform amazingly, and get everything that you want. So in the last week, kind of half consciously, half subconsciously, I decided that I want to deliberately put myself in an uncomfortable situation where I might get disapproval, I might feel like people will really dislike me, and to sit through that discomfort, to get comfortable with the discomfort. So a few days ago, I posted a reel on Instagram that I kind of recorded in the spur of the moment, no plan, no script, just something that kind of annoyed me on Instagram and in real life. And I kind of knew that it would be a bit polarizing. To be honest, I didn't know how polarizing it would get, but it was essentially around the idea where I find the culture in the UK, which is where I live, of moms, and especially moms to young children, but honestly, I see that overall through all ages, defining themselves solely as being mothers, defining themselves by the existence of their children. I was talking in that reel about how I have rarely met or never even met moms to young children in the UK who also own and grow their own businesses. And overall, I said, I kind of find that a little bit icky about how just moms in this country do like only define themselves by motherhood. And I was being really unfiltered in that reel. I was just being myself. I just said what I thought without filters, without trying to be politically correct. And that was because I noticed a hesitation in myself around being fully expressed, especially if it meant not being liked by some. And I decided it was time to deliberately put myself in a slightly uncomfortable position to get used to being disapproved of by certain people or unliked by certain people. Because as I said, when you are disapproved of and unliked by some people, that is when also the right people will really approve of you and really like you. And I am ready for that. So I shared that opinion that is very much true to me. I still stand behind every word. And very quickly, there was quite a lot of backlash. So like critical comments, mainly from people that don't follow me and I have no idea who they are, but also some person that I actually do know in real life, some personal attacks, a lot of misinterpretations. And the funny thing was, what these people actually said in the comments did not bother me. It was not a reflection. Like, for example, a lot of them said that I was feeling guilty about having my son in childcare, and so I'm projecting my guilt over moms who truly care about their children. Like, I saw these comments and I was like, I'm just going to delete because they didn't even bother me. I was just like, these are clearly very triggered people that are trying to like kind of project. So those things didn't trigger me. What did trigger me was this very old, very familiar sensation of like tightness in my chest, the urge to explain myself, even to people that I don't know, the urge to kind of go back on myself, the urge to be understood. I had this urge of like my whole nervous system saying, fix this so we are safe again. I was for a whole like 24 hours debating, should I just archive this reel? Should I disable comments? Should I block and delete everyone who like, all the comments and everyone who comments? Should I explain myself? And it was a very interesting experience. And I chose deliberately not to archive the reel, not to disable comments. So I really just sat with myself and asked myself, what is all of this telling me? Why am I feeling this tightness and this need to kind of backtrack and just like undo what I did? And again, I knew that the trigger was not what the people were saying because I was very confident and I still stand behind every word that I said. That is just me. Even if some people find it a bit offensive or not politically correct, that is my thought and that is what I believe in. And I realized that it was touching the very same nerve that happened to me last week with this coach that I talked about. The fear of being disliked by people, the fear of losing approval, the fear of not being understood, the fear that being fully myself and showing my full self comes at a cost. And so I stayed there, and I'm not going to lie, it was not simple. I found myself with some comments really explaining myself and had to stop myself at one point from replying to comments and trying to explain myself because I was like, this is not the issue here at all. You do not want to be explaining yourself to people who are being triggered because they're not your type of people anyway. So at one point I forced myself to stop replying to comments and just see these comments slowly piling up of like all those other triggered stay-at-home moms commenting to each other and like calling me names, seeing it unfold and really just sitting with it. I did speak to a friend of mine who is a social media expression coach, and I asked her for advice and she gave me some really good advice. So it's always good to speak to people who can just help you, who have been in that same situation. But I sat with it until at one point I felt like I could really handle it. Like I saw it for what it was. I saw it for simply the universe initiating me into being seen by more people. And being seen by more people means not everyone's going to like you, especially as I talked about before on this podcast. Being fully seen does not necessarily mean having hundreds of thousands of views. Being fully seen, the energetics of being seen, means being seen for the full you, or at least for more of you than you are used to show. So being visible is really about showing all different sides of you, even the side of me that is a bit sarcastic, that is a bit condescending maybe, that is unfiltered and says that they find something icky and gross, even if some people might take offense. And I got to a point where I really just felt like I had learned the lesson. It is good. And only when I felt like, okay, I am really just comfortable with this, that is when I took action, because I also don't want to have all of that negative energy on my page. So when I felt like I had experienced that discomfort, it feels okay for me for now. I'm not going to say I still feel 100% comfortable with it, but it got to a point where I felt like, oh, this is enough. Almost like if you imagine people taking ice baths, right? So they will go in, they will feel the discomfort, they will stay there for however long, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And at one point they will be like, okay, I've experienced the discomfort enough. That is when I'm coming out of the ice bath. That's how I felt. So when it got to the point where I was like, I've experienced the discomfort enough, I have expanded my capacity to experience visibility and to experience people not necessarily liking what I'm saying. Again, not really people that I truly care for, not people that I know, definitely not people that are my people and I would ever want to have as clients. That is when I went into that reel, deleted most of the comments, pinned a short comment at the top explaining who this message is for and who this message is not for. And if this message is like not for you people, just move on. And what's interesting is literally right after I did that, that is when the reel stopped growing, stopped getting more views, and literally did not, it was over 24 hours ago, has not gotten one extra comment, which is incredible. Like energetics and what you broadcast into the world is incredible. And once I saw and the universe saw that I had experienced the discomfort that I needed to experience in that first level, because there are going to be more levels, I'm sure, and more potential quote unquote hate comments that come with it, that is when everyone decided like, okay, this was enough of an experimentation for one time. And that is when that thing stopped. That is when that lesson stopped. Now, here's something that I deeply believe, and this all kind of comes back and comes down to this. Growth requires intentional exposure to discomfort. And by discomfort, I mean chosen, contained moments where you let your nervous system experience things like, I can be misunderstood and still be safe. I can be judged and still be safe. I can hold my ground without collapsing, without regretting, without going back on myself, or without attacking other people. And that is how capacity is built. Again, if I go back to the ice bath metaphor, which is not really a metaphor, a lot of people do it, but the reason a lot of people do it is to intentionally expose themselves and their system and their body to discomfort. And the more they do it, the more used to discomfort they get. Now, a lot of people do it for kind of high performance purposes, let it get very comfortable with the discomfort. Personally, I've never tried it, never had the urge to try it. I might try it in the future. I don't know. Again, I've never had the urge to do it. I also believe that for women, it is not the best thing, but that is why people do it, right? And you will see a lot of very, very successful business owners, entrepreneurs, and founders do it because they know that growth requires discomfort. And how do you get your nervous system comfortable with discomfort? By intentionally exposing it to that discomfort. And that is how capacity is built. You do not become confident by saying affirmations, by saying, I am confident in front of the mirror. You become confident by exposing yourself to moments like this, or being exposed to moments like this, to moments that feel unsafe, to moments that once your system thought, meant danger, in surviving those moments and showing your system that you are still safe, you are still okay, and you can survive more of these moments. And when your system knows that, that is when you can finally get to your next level. Now, I do want to be very clear about something here. This is not about forcing yourself into situations that feel not good, that feel violating, and you will know the difference between discomfort and situations that you are just not meant to be in. And it's definitely not about ignoring your intuition, right? So always ask your intuition, if you have a trained intuition, whether this is something that your soul wants to experience right now, whether this is something that will help you grow. But overall, it is about noticing, what reactions am I unconsciously avoiding, or what moments am I unconsciously avoiding because my nervous system thinks that they are unsafe. Because very often, the life that you want is sitting just beyond that sensation and that feeling and that discomfort that you have been trying to avoid. So for me, one of my main business goals for this year, to be honest, I haven't written down my goals yet. I don't know when I'm going to do it. I don't always do that. But one of my main goals is growing my visibility, my business's visibility, going on more podcasts, going on speaking gigs. And part of that is learning to be visible, learning what it means to be visible on a large scale. And when you are visible on a large scale, naturally, some people are just not going to like you. Some people are going to disagree with you. Some people are going to disapprove of your opinions. Some people are just not going to like what you have to say. And if you want to grow, if you want to become more visible, if you truly want to expand your capacity and your visibility, you need to learn to become comfortable with people disapproving of you, with not everyone liking you, with potentially maybe offending some people. And of course, that doesn't mean intentionally offending them. But of course, if anyone was offended by what I said, as we know, we are responsible for our own emotions. It triggered them because it was a reflection for them that I wish if they listened to my podcast, they would know how to shift through these reflections. And then that way they would be able to get to that next level. But you listening to this, you know this. You know that when you come across an opinion that triggers you, that is because there is an imbalance inside of you that is asking to be shifted so that you can grow, so that you can upgrade. So for me, this whole situation was not about quote unquote like winning online. It wasn't necessarily about being right. It definitely wasn't about convincing anyone, because I definitely know that my people who watched the reel immediately agreed with me. I also know that anyone who is triggered by it will just not be convinced. I have never, this is one quality of mine that I am very proud of, and I teach a lot of people this, is do not go into arguments or into conversations trying to convince people of things that they are convinced otherwise about. Like most of the time, that is just a waste of time. But overall, what this experience was for me was about watching myself in real time, sitting in discomfort and learning and teaching my nervous system that I don't actually need to be liked by everyone to be regulated and to feel safe. I don't need universal approval from everyone to remain safe and to remain sovereign of my life. And I don't need to explain myself to feel safe in my own body. And that was my very first experience of real visibility and real growth. Because yes, I've had the odd comments that weren't super flattering or kind of like made fun of spirituality or whatever. But this was where I really put my own self on the line. It was not about my method. It was not about spirituality. It was about me, my beliefs, and the way that I expressed myself. And I learned to be comfortable or to become comfortable with the idea that some people just don't like the way that I express myself and think that I'm a horrible person. And again, that is growth. Growth is quiet, it's unsexy, it is deep, deep growth. So to integrate this for you, lovely listeners, I want to leave you with this question. What reaction or sensation or discomfort are you currently avoiding? Not because it is wrong, but because your nervous system has decided that it is dangerous. Where are you editing yourself? Where are you softening your truth? Where are you not pitching yourself because you are worried of rejection? Where are you not pushing yourself as much as you should because you are worried that people will say no? Where are you staying smaller than you need to just to preserve a sense of safety? Now, I'm not saying you need to throw yourself into the deep end straight away, but you can choose one small intentional moment, intentional edge that tells your system we're allowed to be here. Whether that is seen, whether that is evaluated, whatever that is, we are allowed to be here and we can feel safe in the situation that previously felt unsafe, that previously we didn't even put ourselves in because it felt like it would be unsafe. So the goal here is to stay present when the fear shows up, when the discomfort shows up, when the need to retreat shows up, and choose yourself anyway. Choose to get comfortable with the discomfort. That's the work. That's how you grow, and that's where real expansion happens. And one thing that I aim to do intentionally every single day, I don't always succeed, but I aim to do one thing that scares me, even if it's on a small level, every single day. And when you are doing that, that is when you have no choice but to expand and progress and get to the next level. And that is what you should do. You listening to this are a high performer, ambitious. You want to achieve great things in life. And let me tell you, if you are not yet where you want to be, that is because you are not doing enough things that make you feel uncomfortable and that scare you. So this week, take this as your sign, maybe even today, to do one thing that will make you feel uncomfortable, that will make you feel scared, and go and do it anyway. And if you want guidance and help in doing this, this is what my 40-day experience, God's Favorite, is for. It is my 40-day vortex to elevate your frequency, your identity, and your physical actions. And a lot of things that we do inside are taking the action that scares you, are pushing yourself, are doing the uncomfortable things in order to make yourself God's favorite, in order to make yourself receive all the beautiful things that the universe wants to give you. Because let me tell you a little secret, and that is being God's favorite, being that kind of person that looks like everything just effortlessly happens for them, that is only because they are committed to growth. They are committed to doing the things that scare them. If you look at all the successful people, successful athletes, business owners, entrepreneurs, they seem like they're just lucky, right? But there's a lot of work behind that. Whether that is intentional or unintentional, a lot of it is pushing their boundaries and being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And this is such a random, probably terrible example, but I'm literally thinking about the Kardashians right now. And they look like the kind of people, everyone always says, oh, they're just so rich and so successful for nothing, right? But the truth is, and again, they're not definitely not people that I admire, but this one quality can be admired about them. And that is that they put themselves in very uncomfortable situations where people completely make fun of them. People criticize them. People, they have been the laughing stock of the world for a long time. And I'm sure that didn't feel comfortable for them initially, but they did it to, I don't know, get what they wanted to get, which was the fame and the money. So whenever you look at people who have those lives and those experiences, that is always because they push themselves to do things that scare them. And that is what a lot of what we do in God's favorite and so much more. Again, Kardashians can look like God's favorite, with all their rich and the money that they have. But the truth is, they have pushed themselves to get uncomfortable and to be seen for who they are. And there's also some dark energies involved, but we won't get into that today. So God's favorite is definitely your way to do that with a positive, clean energy that people inside have already seen so many incredible with. So I invite you to check God's favorite in the show notes. It is very, very affordable. Anyone can do it. And I deliberately priced it at a very affordable price so that you can all become God's favorite with 40 intentional days. You're also welcome to check out the links in the show notes for all of the other courses, trainings, and one-on-one work that you can do with me. And if you enjoy this podcast, as always, I would very much appreciate it if you can rate us at 5 stars and leave a comment if it's on Spotify. And if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe, leave a comment. Tell me what you got from this episode. Tell me what edgy, uncomfortable moments you decided to go for and put yourself in to grow. What scary thing you decided to do in order to grow. I always love hearing from you and hearing your experiences and how this podcast has helped you. So again, thank you so much for being here, and I will see you here next time.